Right, hi guys, and welcome to a goods shed. Actually, no, this isn't a goods shed. It's the station building at Foxfield on the Cumbrian coastline. The route I'm on today is the Coniston Branch, which I have featured before, but I wanted to. Well, I got the idea to drive a certain train which you might have seen when I showed the station sign for the first time, and mainly because this route I generally get pretty good frame rates on this route. What's this over here? Okay, I don't know what that's doing. I don't know what this is doing here. Should probably go back to Brighton. Anyway, this is what we're going to be driving today. It is the Blue Pullman. Although clearly here it's labelled as the Midland Pullman, but I call it the Blue Pullman. Just hold on. Yeah, I think the power cars in this thing reuse sound effects. I think the sounds are reused from the original, or from the Deltic. What's Mr. Dark doing here? Anyway, let's get in the cab. Now, one thing I don't like about this unit is that there are no sounds when you're in the cab apart from the horn. Thus, yes, unfortunately, none of these switches are clickable. It's unfortunate, but considering this is actually a freeware train, the detail in the cab is actually quite impressive, I have to say. There's even a fire extinguisher there. I don't think the cab light works. Hold on, let me check. No. The instrument lights don't work either. Anyway, the points are set, and I'm going to be driving this thing all the way to Coniston. So let's go. I'm not sure whether or not I'll stop at each station along the way or just go non-stop. One thing I'm surprised about with this train is just how quickly it accelerates. Yes, as I said, I really don't know why this was shunted. Why this thing was shunted in here. Although I will say that is quite a nice angle. Anyway, so as we go along, I'll probably be talking about my future series. Well, my series that I might end up making on this route. And it takes direct inspiration from Over the Hills from Angry Welshman Productions, the Dark Railway series from Dark DJ Productions, and the 110th Platoon from, what is it, I think it's Iron Panzer Lol or something along those lines. Anyway, the first station on this line is Brofton-in-Furness, although clearly here it's labelled as simply Brofton. This is sort of the free roam scenario that I made, and I had it set to about 5 o'clock in the evening because I always like the way the evening sun looks on the trains. Now, as for the real Blue Pullman sets, I hardly know anything about them. I do know that they were they were classified as initially classified as, I think, class 251 under the British Railways top system. I'm going past a field of cows. Seeing this lot, we must be in New Zealand. Actually, no, we're not. We're actually in Cumbria, in the northwest of England. Even though when I first came across this route, I actually thought it was fictional. Hence why the original version of my series had it set in Staffordshire. But upon realising that the route, the Coniston Branch was a real line, I have completely rewritten it so that it is now a lot more realistic. So the original version of the series used Great Western engines, whereas this new one obviously uses engines from the London Midland Scottish Railway, one of which I think we might end up seeing at Brofton. This is the first out of 3 intermediate stations on the branch, and you'll notice that there's quite a steep grade out of the station. I think it's it's 1 in 27, but that 1 in 27 section doesn't last all that long. If any purists come across this video, they're probably going to have a fit over using a train like that, over using the Blue Pullman on a branch line, which in a way I can sort of understand, because as far as I know these things never ran on branch lines. Yeah, see, there's an engine sat there. I think they're waiting for this train to go through before they can head to Foxfield. This engine that's sat here, that is an element of London Midland Scottish Railway Fowler 4F, and that's one of the engines that's going to be featuring in the series. As you can see, her number is 44347, and I've decided to name her after a Fleetwood Mac song, meaning the engine's name is going to be Sarah. Hopefully. Now, as I said, I'm not going to stop. Actually, I think I might just slow down the train at least, just so you can get a better sense of the look. One thing I've always been puzzled about is the bizarre way in which the station is designed, because as you can see, the platforms are staggered, but the Coniston bound platform is right here on the points. Right, now I think we're on the 1 in 27. It'd be interesting to see. Before recording this, I did a test to see if this. I'd stopped this train on the 1 in 27 to see if it could start on grade. I think it did. But for some reason, this scene here, this scene with the line going down the hill into the town, reminds me of the setting for for a Thomas the Tank Engine episode. Ironically, one that doesn't actually feature the Blue E2, rather focuses on Percy. The episode I'm referring to is A Surprise for Percy, and there's one set in that episode where it's a double track line going down the hill into a town, or a small town setting, and that was the one where at one point Percy was taking a train of troublesome trucks up the line, and for some reason Percy was running bunker first, and the coupling between Percy and the wagons broke, and it's the troublesome trucks, what do you expect, and they went rolling down the hill. I think Bertie the bus and Sir Topham Hatt gave chase and caught up to them on a hill. Anyway, so I will just say that this train isn't going to appear in my series, because at the time period in which I've currently got it set in, it's set in 1952. As far as I know, these things didn't come along until like the mid-1960s. As I said, I know absolutely nothing about the history of these things, although apart from the fact that obviously they were, as you can tell, these were very high. These were like a luxury train, and I think two of the coach. I think they were equipped. I mean, that's a sharp curve. Wouldn't want to go faster than, I'd say, 45 around it. But I'm trying to go for a more relaxed run today, hence why I'm sticking to the speed limit. Ordinarily, I would probably, well, if I was just a bit of a reckless driver, I'd probably gun it up the valley to see just how fast this thing can go. Well, as you can tell, the speedometer goes up to 100 miles an hour. Although I'm not sure if you're actually allowed. I don't think the speed limit on this branch goes above 35. One thing I really do like about this line is the scenery. It's one of the it's one of the UKTrainSim freeware pack routes. I think in the other two, I believe, are the Lavender line and the Candlewick Railway. Much like the Coniston Branch, I initially thought the Lavender line was fictional, but I've later found out that the Lavender line is actually a real heritage railway in Sussex. I think, based on what I've read, it's not too far from Uckfield, which is the terminus of a diesel-only branch line. I forget exactly where it branches off, but the junction station is on the line from South Croydon to East Grinstead, which of course provides a link with the Bluebell Railway. Yeah, I suppose it's come to the point in the video where I can't really... I'm trying to think of something to say and can't really think of anything. So as I said, we just went through Brofton a few minutes ago, so that means the next station on the line is Woodlands. And in the series I've got it written so that actually I probably shouldn't give away like any spoilers regarding the story. You might be able to tell, but we're coming up to what I think is called the Five Arches Viaducts, which is the only significant engineering feat on the entire line. Yeah, it's got 5 arches, hence why they call it Five Arch Viaduct. That's a good shot, I think. Wait until the back of the train goes by. And there we go. As you can tell, Woodlands has appeared on the mini map, as it were. Of course, one interesting thing about this line is that, as you might be able to tell, it's certainly not a flat route. Most of the time, going towards Coniston, you're going up a gradient, varying between, I guess, as you can see, 1 and 78. And I think that climb out of Brofton is the only part of the line where it gets up to 1 and 27, which I think was the same grade that was, it was the same gradient on the Rewanui line, which was one of the classic west coast, well, which is on the west coast of New Zealand's South Island, and that was back in like the steam, like prior to, like, I don't know, 1969, well, prior to the 1970s, it was true coal mining country, if you will. There was a reasonably big network of lines in that area built for the sole purpose of transporting coal from the mines to the wharf at Greymouth. One of them was the Rewanui line, which I think branched off the line to Rapahoi. That's, I think, a distance signal for that'll be the distance signal for Woodlands. Yeah, as soon as they left Greymouth, they crossed the Grey River on the classic, or a reasonably well known amongst New Zealand rail fans, wooden sort of I think it's like an S-curved bridge. I'm not sure. I have to look at pictures of it again. But the bridge was called the Cobden Bridge. I think, yeah, Cobden. The Rewanui line was, I forgot about this 20 limit. As I was saying, the Rewanui line was unusual because it was one of, hang about, I didn't set the points like this. Very strange. But anyway, this is, I'll just take a break from rambling about West Coast lines for a second. So this is Woodlands, although for some reason it misses out the S on the station sign. The only spoiler I'll give away is that this is, in the series, in the universe, if you will, this is the main crossing point. I mean, I like to consider it the halfway point. Over here we got, I think really all it is just the station with the 2 platforms, and this siding, which in the series will be used for cattle wagons, as you can clearly see. I think between here and Torva the grades get as steep as like 1 in 35, if my memory serves me right. I haven't driven on this route in a little while, so it's always good to refresh my memory, if you will. As I was saying, so the Rewanui line was quite an odd. It was a bit of an oddity because, not just because of how steep the ruling grade was, mind you, it's nothing compared to the Bernina Railway, with its ruling grade of 1 in 14. But anyway, the the Rewanui line was unusual because it was I think one of only 3 lines in New Zealand that ever had a fell centre rail. The other 2 being the line from Blackball to Roa, and the Rimutaka incline. It is a bit difficult to say some of these Māori words half the time, especially one like the Rimutaka. I suppose one of the more difficult ones, well, 2 of the more difficult ones would be like Putaruru or Rotorua. I suppose if you say it slow enough, you can sort of get it right. I think rolling the R is the trick. This is the trick to pronouncing these names properly. But anyway, in the case, I think the Rimutaka incline was one of only 3 out of all the railways. I think, yeah, out of all the lines. There's a tractor. Wait, oh, it's a Class 37 in its true form. Anyway, I believe the Rewanui. Sorry, need to stop repeating myself. The Rimutaka incline was one of only 3, I think one of only 2 or 3 lines across in the entire history of railways that ever used the fell centre rail for adhesion. Because the Rewanui and the Roa lines, even though they did have it, they only used it for braking, because the grades on those routes, although pretty steep, were shallow enough to have the steam locomotive running on conventional adhesion. Because I think I don't know the grade of the Blackpool to Roa line, but I already mentioned that the Rewanui one was 1 in 27, and I think the Rimutaka, the one from the Rimutaka incline from Cross Creek to Summit was what was it? I think it was 1 in 15. Interestingly, there's a railway on the Isle of Man that even today still has the fell centre rail, but again only for braking purposes. I think it's if my memory serves me right, it's called the Snaefell Mountain Railway, which is an electric line that runs, I think, from the town of Laxey to the terminus, which is 30 feet short of the summit of Snaefell Mountain. Yes, you might not be able to see it all that well, but I can at least see the exhaust coming from the engine, which apparently is called the Clag. At least it is with British diesels. I think the exhaust outlet's there. This is interesting, the way these Blue Pullman power cars are designed, because as you can see, like the first 2/3, obviously the driver's cab, the engine room, and what appears to be a guard's compartment, and then you've got this last third of the coach, or the coach, which is for passenger accommodation, which I don't think I've ever seen that sort of thing before. I think the length of this train is authentic. Not long before recording this video, not long before I decided to do this run, I watched a view on YouTube of, I think, a stupid plane. I'm not sure if the microphone will pick up the sound of the plane, but I can certainly hear it. Yeah, we do get, in the part of Tauranga where I live, we do get planes going overhead quite a few times each day, and most of them are just excuse me, I thought I had something in my throat for a second. Yeah, but as I was saying, looks like we're going to go up a sort of steeper gradient. Anyway, yeah, most of the planes that we get over our house are New Zealand ones. Right, yes, as you can see, we're going up 1 in 70 now. I suppose driving or taking a diesel along this route is much easier than steam. Although I do remember I did pull it off with. I did manage to go along this route, get all the way to Coniston with a steam locomotive before. Come to think of it, I think I used Sarah on that run, as in Sarah the 4F. As we go along the line, we will see other. I think we'll see some of the other. We'll see some of the other characters that will appear in the series. It's unfortunate that most of these sheep have got their rear ends turned to face the camera. there's even more sheep over there. Isn't that just such a typically English setting, the cottage on the hillside? Anyway, I think yeah, see what I mean about the steep gradients? Yeah, it's certainly not a route for like beginners, as it were. I think you do need to be accustomed to gradient routes with fairly steep gradients before driving this. I think probably the steepest. I'm not exactly sure what the steepest route in Train Simulator is, but I think it might be the Bernina Railway. There's actually two versions of the Bernina Railway available. There's the freeware version, which I have got, which also includes the Samaritz to Thusis section. I've probably butchered some of those names, but such is the nature of not being from Switzerland. Anyway, and yet much more recently, along came Thomson Interactive, who have also done their own version of the Samaritz to Thusis section, as well as the Chur to Arosa line. For some stupid reason, they didn't bother making the whole Bernina Railway. They only modelled the route as far south as Poschiavo, when in real life it goes all the way to Tirano, which is just a little bit south of the Switzerland/Italy border. Anyway, as we approach Torva, which is, I believe, the summit of the line, we're going to go past a house that will be featured somewhat heavily in the series. Well, 1 or 2 episodes, I think. It's on the left-hand side of the line, as in the left-hand side of trains going towards Coniston. I'm trying to think of something else to talk about. So. Yeah, I think from memory, that's the house over there. It's not all that grand, is it? I suppose that's what you get with stock Train Simulator assets. There's this other one over here, but I don't see how I could make that into I don't see how I could work that one into the series. Well, I can't think of a way to work it into the series anyway. Seems like this run has been going fairly quickly. Yeah, so Torva is the third and last intermediate station on the line, and it's also, I think, the summit, as in it's the highest point on the line in terms of elevation. Yeah, so there's 2 of the characters, both of which are LMS Ginties. I'm not sure if anyone else does, but I still have a I have a very old Triang I think it's a 00 scale model of a Ginty that I think I got as a present from my granddad, who had it for quite a few years before me. So there are 2 Ginties that are going to be featured in the series. This one is, as you can tell, numbered 47531. And the other one I think is 47432. I think from memory 47531's name is going to be, I think, Astrid, if my memory serves me right, and 47432 is Richard. Yeah, I'm not too good with thinking of names. Yeah, that's 47432. And for a second I thought I'd done 2 47531s. Bizarrely, Torva, as you can tell, Torva doesn't actually have a proper crossing loop, so that would probably hinder operations on some occasions, but I'm not really sure. For some reason I've put a rake of German flatbed wagons here, all carrying logs. Yeah, I don't really know why. And anyway, as I said earlier, Torva is the summit of the line, and from here on we start to go downhill for a while and then go uphill again, and then we arrive at Coniston Station. One thing that I've found interesting about this line, well, some of these overbridges on this line, is that the clearances are so tight that, well, you certainly can't put it this way, you certainly can't run any American rolling stock on this line. Maybe the General Electric P42DC, which I think is slightly smaller than the normal American engines, but you'll see what I mean by the tight loading gauge. as the train goes through. One thing I don't like about this train is that it doesn't use the second tone. You see what I mean about the tight clearances? Mind you, as you can tell, there's a fair bit of clearance on from the roof, not so much the sides. I'm not sure if the one coming into that you go under when you arrive at Coniston is the same or slightly smaller, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Yeah, so one thing I don't like about this Blue Pullman is that it doesn't have a second tone to the horn, so it doesn't sound all that nice. As I said, I think the sounds on this thing are reused from the old Kuju Deltic. But another problem I have with this is that there's no run sounds from the coaches. Like, what I mean by run sounds is, like, if you've got Armstrong Powerhouse's Mark II coach pack, you'll know what I mean. 'Cause if you're driving a train if you're using those coaches, as you go along the line, you hear the sound of the wheels just running along the rails, and that's what I mean by run sounds. I think on the Wherry Line's routes are different, like, because on different parts of the route you've got welded track, and other parts you've got jointed track. Basically, what that just means the two different ways in which the lengths of rail are joined together. I think the older method of doing it is jointed track, and that's where you get that dun dun dun, that noise as you go along the line. I don't think you get that with welded track, but I'm not really sure. I think some of the track around my way is welded, but I'll have to go out again and make sure. Yeah, I'm not really sure what else to talk about. Yeah, but as I said, despite my problems with the sounds, I do think this is actually quite good for a freeware train. Like, I don't know how old it is, but I think it's been around for a good few years. I think it was made by a developer, I think it's called RScott. I think that's Richard Scott, if my memory serves me right. He's done quite a few reasonably good freeware trains, like the interloper that you saw at Foxfield, if you remember. I think he also did the Great Western rail car, which I used a while ago on a run from Blaenau-Festiniog to the now mothballed nuclear power station at Trawsfynydd. At least I think it's pronounced Trawsfynydd. I'm not really sure, especially with Welsh place names. I think hopefully I've got Blaenau-Festiniog right. Blimey, this overbridge has got an even tighter clearance than the previous one that I looked at. Yeah, you really wouldn't want to be running any American stock through that. So as we approach Coniston, as you look to your right, now to do an impression of a tour guide. And on our right, if you look, you will see Coniston Lake. Reminds me of a joke from a SpongeBob episode where SpongeBob and Patrick were mucking around with a can of invisible spray, and they ended up spraying their clothes with invisible spray, I think. And they were trying to wrestle about. I think SpongeBob was trying to wrestle the spray paint can out of Patrick's hand. Well, not that Patrick even has any hands, like proper hands, I mean. And then all of a sudden a tour bus comes along, and the driver says, "And on our right, if you look, you'll see two naked guys fighting over a can of paint." Yes, it's a bit of a strange show as SpongeBob, but I suppose at the same time it's equally charming. Anyway, so going back to my series that I plan on doing about this route, well, at the moment I've got scripts written for the pilot episode plus episodes 1 to 8, so technically episodes 0 to 8. At the moment I can't really think of any idea. I've got a bit of writer's block at the moment, meaning I can't really think of any ideas for for future episodes. The other problem is obviously voice actors, but I'm trying to get that sorted on my own time, as it were. Well, off camera, for want of a better term. Yeah, so here we are arriving at Coniston. This is obviously the terminus of the line. And if you look over here, you'll see another character that will appear in the series. That one's name is Alan, and he is a Lancashire and Yorkshire Railway Class 5. The reason I gave him the number 50705 is because that's the same. Well, I actually have a 00 scale model of the LNYR Class 5 that has that same number. Yeah, so I think this line was opened, what was it, 1859, I think it was, and closed in 1962, so a little bit before the Blue Pullmans came along. I've actually found a few pictures of trains at the real Coniston station, including a Ginty under the overall roof, and the Ginty in that picture was 47531, hence why I chose 47531 to appear in the series. The reason why Alan is going to be in the series is because, from what I understand, the Lancashire and Yorkshire Railway Class 5s did in fact run on this line in the 1930s, although I think by the time British Railways was formed, I think they had started using the IVIT 2MT tank engines, otherwise known as Mickey Mouse tanks, and quite frankly I've got no idea why they got that nickname. I wonder what if Walt Disney was still alive today. It would be interesting to see what he would make of. It would be interesting to see what he would make of that nickname. Yes, I think the Mickey Mouse tanks were certainly very widely used. I think. Yeah, they ran everywhere from like Coniston, or from Cumbria to Dorset. I think because for a period of a couple of years in the early 1960s, a few of them were used on the Lyme Regis branch after the Adams radial tanks were retired. That's a whole different story. The Lyme Regis branch is coming to Train Simulator, I think, so I believe it's going to be a freeware route. So once it's released, I'll download it and take the Adams radial tank along that route, or maybe even the LSWR livery, or the London and South Western Railway livery for the Terrier. Yeah, but I'll explain all of that if when I get download the Lyme Regis branch. Yeah, well, anyway, that was the Coniston branch with the Blue Pullman. Bit of an odd choice for a video, but oh well, I suppose there's nothing wrong with being odd. Well, the main reason I wanted to do this video is because I wanted to see what I haven't really driven the Blue Pullman before, so I wanted to see what she was like to drive, and I can't make any. Unfortunately, although I quite like it, I can't really make any promises as to whether or not I will use this train again. But oh well, you never know. Anyway, I think it's time for me to stop the recording and get this video uploaded, so yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. So yeah, thank you all for stupid camera. And there's another plane going over. What a way to ruin the outro. But anyway, yeah, thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.